From there, Rob, if you'll lead us in the third step prayer, that'd be great.
It would be my pleasure. Third step prayer, which is on page 63 of your big book. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Thank you, Rob. And we are on, sorry, I should have had my book already open, but I didn't.
Page 20.
Page 20, right there near the bottom. And we were talking about we're going to be talking about the types of drinkers today. We stopped a little bit before that so that we would be able to do that. So let's go ahead and start with the moderate drinker.
Okay, the moderate drinker at the bottom of page 20, everybody. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely, if they have good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man can also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult or troublesome, or may even need medical assistance.
Now we'll talk a little bit about the two different types that we just read about here. The moderate drinker is obviously that of what we probably would call a normal drinker. They are definitely frequent drinkers, but at the same time, based on what the book is saying and what we're looking at, they can stop at any time if given, and that is the important word here, given a sufficient reason to do so with little or no trouble. And in fact, I would say that the moderate drinkers, boy, I think maybe there might have been a time that I was a moderate drinker, but it wasn't necessarily a moderate drinker. I think I was probably the shades of gray, closer to a heavy drinker, and had been most of my life as going forward. But the moderate drinker is the one that we all, I guess, at some point in time in our discovery of alcoholism, aspired to be. We wanted to be able to control it. We wanted to be able to stop. And what we found is that we were not a moderate drinker by any stretch of the imagination. But again, moderate drinker is somebody who could just set it down, walk away at any given time with little or no problems to do so. Heavy drinker. Now, the heavy drinker is really, I think in terms of a drinker that, that could um, be given a great reason to stop. Again, ill health, maybe a relationship, or just a sufficient reason from maybe a doctor, just a warning or something like that. Probably struggles with it a little bit because they're used to that, drinking heavy on the weekends and then drinking moderately throughout the week and that type of thing. Or drinking every other day, every few days, but when they do drink, they drink to excess, kind of thing. Can stop, and actually that is really the difference between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic is that the heavy drinker can in fact use under their own power, their own will, can stop and walk away from it, struggling to some extent, but still be able to walk away from it and be fine. I think part of it is too is that there was probably in my life different times throughout it as I was growing up, as a young adult, and then through my mid years. I found that being a heavy drinker was probably along some type of line there. The difference in me as an alcoholic and a heavy drinker is that I couldn't really stop. I could stop for a day or three, but I would still go back and drink. And when I did drink, it was always to excess and as much as I could get and as quickly as I could get it. And I think too that's probably a differentiator as well, and that is the amount of alcohol, but the speed at which you drink it. I was a fast drinker. I never liked a cold drink to sit because I didn't want it to get warm. So
Ice cubes, Leo, ice
know.
cubes.
Well, that just waters it down. No, but you're right. The heavy drinker, again, is somebody that is drinking to excess, but at the same time, under their own willpower, is able to stop. Rob?
Yeah, and I can tell you that I personally went through the different phases. I started out as a moderate drinker where I would go to a function, have 3 beer really quickly, and then stop for the night. I was done. I got a little bit of a buzz. I was happy, gone. Then it got to the point where I became more of a heavy drinker. I would drink like crazy, but I could walk away and not and be okay the next day and not want any alcohol. I didn't have the allergy and the malady. I didn't have but where where did I cross that line? I don't know. But I do know there was a time where, you know, I could walk away from the alcohol. I didn't have to have a drink the next day, etc. When did I cross that invisible line? I wish I knew. Maybe I could have stopped, but you know, if there's a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, how many people have we met this way? Usually, and I usually think of people that have gone to university and college, have gone away, they get away from parental control, they drink quite a bit, but then what happens is that, they get a job, they get a serious girlfriend, and, their parting ways have, gone to the wayside because they want to concentrate on business or getting ahead, you know, getting married, having children, etc. You know, and that's what these people are. They might have been a heavy drinker at one point, but you know what? Yeah, it was a phase of my life, and they've moved on. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of the liquor career, he begins to lose all control of the liquor consumption. Once, and emphasize, once he starts to drink.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. Yeah, the first time that we've heard the phrase or words "real alcoholic," I know that there's been a lot of discussion out there between, somebody would say, "What's the difference between an alcoholic and a real alcoholic?" And the answer, based on what I can find, is that there really isn't a difference. It's just I think what we were trying to differentiate from is probably the heavy drinker and an alcoholic. And so, some people may misconstrue a heavy drinker as an alcoholic. And what we're talking about here is somebody that really is alcoholic, meaning that, as Rob said, and this is the emphasis we want to put on this, and that is that once they start to drink, they can't stop, and that's part of this discussion with regard to the malady and the allergy. Two things that we'll really, continue to discuss. And that is that as the malady, you can't not have that first drink. You've got that draw to alcohol, and then once you do start drinking, the allergy kicks in, and you can't and don't stop until alcohol is gone or you've passed out, and things have gone really bad at that point. So there is kind of the graduation to it. I don't. There's think it's interesting. A lot of people get insight about their drinking when they're young, but don't really admit it and or acknowledge it. On the other hand, I think that most people that I hear from will talk about the fact that they started out as a somewhat moderate drinker and then graduated to a heavy drinker, and then from there they ended up becoming alcoholic. When in fact they may have been certain shades of gray again, alcoholic all along. They just were in some phase or ability to put it off for periods of time, whatever that might have been, a few days, etc. So, Rob?
When I graduated into the real alcoholic, I never got a diploma. Terrible joke, but what the heck, eh? We're not a glum lot, we are an odd lot. But the thing is that they lose control of their liquor consumption. Once I take any alcohol into my system, the allergy kicks in. That's when we are in trouble. And then our minds start to play games with us and tell us, hey, you know what, you're making too much of this. You're not an alcoholic. You've had a little bit of bad luck. Things aren't going your way right now. Yeah, my wife is giving me a hard time, but that's, the kids have been giving her a hard time, so she's picking on me. So, it's just the domino effect. You know what? The thing is that once we take any alcohol whatsoever into our system, the allergy kicks in. We can't hammer home that point enough. When we're at that stage, we are alcoholics. Okay? And the obsession kicks in, and we can't stop ourselves from taking that first drink. We are in desperate trouble when we are at that point because we have no control. Here's the fellow, we're on page 21, everybody. Here's the fellow who's been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He is seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day, and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well balanced concerning everything except liquor. In that respect, he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities, skills, and aptitudes, and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down on his head by a senseless series of sprees. He is the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around. Yet early next morning, he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have little liquor concealed all over his house to be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-powered sedatives and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then it comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor, gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums.
Yeah, it's a sad state. We're talking about the real alcoholic as being a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, somebody that is somewhat normal when they're sober, and we're talking about people that have short periods of sobriety, meaning that they are only sober for a part of the day before they start drinking at night, and then or in the afternoon, and there you go. But the also the after drinking, their personality changes, and I think that's an important point here too. Is that a lot of people that are alcoholics will say before they start drinking, "I'm only going to have 3 drinks," but after that first drink, they've changed or altered their mental state, and they are a different person at that point, and no longer can keep the promise that they were going to stop drinking at 3 they continue to drink more. The thing here is that getting tight at exactly the wrong moment. It's usually at a wedding or a business deal or a luncheon or something like that you go to and find yourself drinking to excess when it was inappropriate in the first place to really be drinking very much at all, if at all. We've got a lot of references to the allergy and to the malady in this paragraph, and a lot of turmoil and a lot of tragedy befalls this person that we're talking about, as well as the people around him, and it's just a great description of somebody that is well and good and in a good place when they're not drinking, but when they are drinking, everything comes apart. And at the end of it all, they destroy most of everything that's in and around them before they finally decide to get help. And in some cases, they start taking medication to mask the withdrawal. I know that I was one that did that for years, thinking that I had a tremor, and I found that the tremor I was experiencing was my withdrawal that I was going through. And once I realized that, after a period of time, I was able to wean myself off of the medications I was taking in order to control it, and then ultimately that went away. But it is the recovery that we're looking for. But right now we're talking about the what it is to be alcoholic. Rob?
Yeah, and here is where Bill is starting to get us educated. You can take on page 21 to 22, there are about 22 references of he, him, and now if we take those items and instead of using he, but I do absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. I am seldom mildly intoxicated. If you take those and put them into I question, it's a great way of taking a look at yourself. Do I do these things? Am I that way when I start drinking? Because I came into the fellowship, I didn't know whether I was an alcoholic or not. I knew I drank too much, but I didn't know what an alcoholic was. Okay. I knew that, yeah, sure, there were times that I would start drinking that, I couldn't stop. I didn't know why though. Okay. So we're being educated. Okay. So why, when I start drinking, can I not stop? I want more all the time. Well, in the doctor's opinion, it told us that we have an allergy. Okay. The phenomenon of craving, that anytime we take alcohol into our system, the body craves more. Why is that? I don't know. It's not that important that I know the medical breakdown, even though I do have it written down. But the thing is that I've realized that, I take a look at it, I go, yeah, you know what? Once I start drinking, I can't stop. I'm going for the rest of the night or the rest of the day or until I black out or pass out. Huh. Okay. So I have the allergy. Now we're going to get into the second part of it, the mind. Why is it that I keep doing this over and over again when I don't really want to? Now we're going to be educated on that. So we're in about the middle of page 22, everybody. This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary, but this description should identify him roughly. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle, with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it that he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters?
Yeah, we're touching on the whys here. We're going to be answering these questions as we go forward. The other thing too here is that again, he uses the word true alcoholic. There's really no difference between that and a real alcoholic. And ultimately, if you were just to leave off real or true, we're still talking about an alcoholic. Getting ready to start answering some of these questions about the malady and moving forward. Rob?
Yeah, and now we're going to start. Now, these are questions we've probably asked ourselves a few times, but we've never, had the answer to. And this is what I love about the book is that they never ask you a question without answering it. And you know, if hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humility, why do I take that first drink? Why do I do it? Well, let's try to find out. Bill's going to answer that for us. We don't have to answer that for ourselves. Perhaps there will never be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. Do you want
Yeah.
me to keep going, Leo?
Yep.
Or you
Let's
want
go
to
ahead and
answer?
just, yeah.
Keep going? Okay. We know that while the alcohol keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We're equally positive that once he takes any alcohol whatsoever into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this.
Yeah, we all have been there. We all can say this. We all know what they're talking about here, and that is that one, not being able to stay away from alcohol when it's available and around. We figure out whatever reason we figure out justifications, right, wrong, or indifferent to drink. We try to figure out how much we can get, as much as we can and sometimes in as little time as we can. And we try to get to that point where we just don't stop drinking, and we hope that it goes better than than it ever does, but it doesn't. The and they do make reference, it might be that you're able to stay away from drinking for a day or two or three or maybe even a week at a time. But at some point in time, there's going to be alcohol. You're going to figure out a reason to drink. And they're also making reference here that once you start, which you've not been able to stop, once you start, you also aren't able to stop this. Rob?
Leo, I was able to quit for a couple of days and then I'd reward myself and go on a spree, and it was just craziness, but, white knuckling it is not the answer. And, because eventually I'm going to give in. I have to have well, they're going to tell us more about it. So
Yeah.
instead of me going into it, let's the experts talk about it. And the next part I've highlighted quite heavily because it's really important. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, you will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk.
Yeah, I was more of the latter here, being irritated and refusing to talk. I always hated it when people called me out and brought it to my attention that I really shouldn't start drinking in the first place. And then if I do start drinking, then I shouldn't be drinking as much as I'm drinking, and that I should control it and stop when everybody else was seeming to stop, or going much slower than I was willing to go with regard to drinking. But let's talk about the very first part. We're talking about this, the observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took that first drink. So that is one of the differentiators between us and the moderate or the heavy or even the light drinker or whatever, is that they are able to not start in the first place. They've got that decision-making power, if you will, under their own willpower, that they can stop. For us, we haven't got that. We don't have the ability to not drink for, as Rob said, for more than a few days at a time. And it is really just white knuckling it until we get to the next drink. And in fact, our thinking is somewhat sabotaged by the fact that we're always conspiring to figuring out when we're going to get that next drink. And once we get that next drink, then obviously the terrible cycle begins, and there we are. So the book is talking about malady here in this part, and that inability to not drink is just there. And then they talk about once it is started, then the havoc is there. Rob?
They talked about here about like it's like having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer, but they can't feel the ache. I had my brother's old girlfriend many years ago. She had a really bad headache, and she kept taking aspirin and more aspirin and more aspirin until the they took her to the hospital, and the doctors are saying, "Why are you taking so much aspirin? Are you trying to kill yourself?" She goes, "No, I got this really bad headache." Turns out she had a brain tumor. They were able to operate, and she was fine. I also had another friend about a year and a half ago whose mother was complaining about a headache. My first reaction is, could it be a tumor? Well, the lady died of a brain tumor. So when they talk about beating themselves on the head with a hammer, I understand, it's like a brain tumor, like they just want to get rid of the ache. You know, we don't always think of the worst. Sometimes we think it's just a headache, and it's not going to be too bad. Fallacious reasoning, craziness, senseless, unsound, lacking in logic. We come up with all these different reasons why we're taking that first drink, knowing where it's going to take us. But it's our brain. Bill from New Jersey always talks about, our brain wants its candy and it will tell us anything to get it. So the brain says, you're making too much of a big deal about this. It'll be different this time, And what do? We listen to it. I always like to think of we got the one bird on one shoulder, that's a good bird. And we got another bird on the other shoulder, that's a bad bird. And what bird do we listen to? Well, sometimes we'll listen to the good bird. Sometimes, don't do it today, Rob. Take it easy. The kids have an activity to go to. You want to be able to take the kids to the activity. Then there's other days where the bird's going, you know what, you were good yesterday. Today's your day. You deserve one. You know what? And I listen to that bad bird, and then it just puts me right back into the soup. Once in a while, he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they're down for the count.
This obsession we're talking about here is one of the major obsessions. There's two of them. One of them is that somehow they will be able to stop drinking and stay stopped. The other obsession is that they will be able to control their drinking like a normal drinker. But let's back up just a little bit here. This admission of whether or not they actually know why they're taking that first drink, because obviously that's more of a personal internal thing that you know, outwardly you may tell somebody, well, I'm taking a drink because it's, I mean, it could be as simple as it's work is over and it's time to start drinking kind of thing. It's 4 o'clock and I'm ready to start drinking, et cetera, et cetera. Or it could be, as we've talked about a couple of times, and that is something really good is happening, or something really bad happened. It was just a bad day at work, and I need a drink, kind of thing. There's the creativity of an alcoholic is amazing when it comes to the reasons why they start drinking. The other part of this is that it's admitting that you really don't know why, that you're baffled, that you sit back and you think internally, why is it that I can't stop drinking? Why is it that I can't keep myself from taking that first drink? I really don't understand it. And for the uneducated alcoholic, this is a really bad place to be, because it's frustrating, it's maddening, it is a place where you really find yourself trying, but not able to stop. And it is, you almost give up at some point and saying that I guess there's nothing I can do. I'm just doomed to this drinking that I do, and that's that. Rob?
That's not the way it's going to be, Leo.
Nope.
Because we have an answer. You know, and the thing is that right now, who is this person relying on? Themselves. They think they can do it on their own. You know, with enough willpower, you know, and with enough gumption, I'll be able to control and enjoy my drinking. I will be able to do it. What have we learned? We have learned allergy. Now that we also know that we're learning now about the mind, we can't stop ourselves from taking that first drink. So there's got to be more to it. And this is the education part. You know, we're going to learn. You know, they talk about baffled, baffling, and baffle. On page 23 here, and I put this in the chat for anybody that's interested. On page 23, once this malady is a real whole, they are a baffled lot. On page 26, more baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. Page 34, this is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. Page 50 and 51, once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Page 58, remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Page 84, we will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And 92, tell them how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. And page 107, it was so baffling, so heartbreaking. You know, so I just wanted to throw that in. But remember, this person right now, okay, we're on page 23. We read the doctor's opinion, okay, the preface, the forewords. We're at page 23. They're relying on themselves. They are going to be able to control and enjoy their drinking on their own accord. How true this is, if you realize. In a vague way, their families and friends' sense of these drinkers are abnormal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will.
Yeah, this is the outside wishes of the people around you. They realize that you have a problem. They recognize that you don't know how to drink properly. You're embarrassing. You are aggravating. You cause resentment, etc. They're all sitting back and looking at this, that you have a problem, but they too being ignorant of alcoholism at this point, or knowing very little about it, are basically fingers crossed, hoping that when we go to an event that you don't drink. If you do drink, you only drink a couple. All to realize that, and all of that is near impossible. But everybody is looking forward to that day when you can stop drinking, or become a better person because of it. And that's kind of a testament of the people that stick with you through all of this. You do lose a lot of friends, you do lose some family members, etc., from the standpoint that they don't want to be around you, and that is you become this kind of lone wolf when it comes to drinking, and you find yourself by yourself drinking. And I know that Rob has described it. I know I did at times. Even if I was around people that weren't drinking, I was drinking, and at first I would feel a little awkward because I was the only one drinking, and then after that first drink, second drink, my inhibitions went away, and I didn't care. But nonetheless, it is that hopeful optimism that people have for you to somehow wake up one day and stop your drinking. Why can't you control it? Why can't you stop? Why can't you be good about alcohol? Rob?
And normal drinkers, they can stop when they want, so they don't understand why the alcoholic has to keep drinking. Why do you keep drinking? Like, you've had enough. Don't you think you've had enough? Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. We learn that. All these people, but normal drinkers just don't understand. Why should they understand? They can do it, they can stop. So they think you should be able to also. They don't know about, look, most alcoholics, when they first come into the fellowship, don't understand that there's an allergy, the phenomenon of craving, okay, and the obsession of the mind. So why would a normal drinker know anything about it? They don't. So they just think, and if we go to a party and we aren't drinking, or we are trying to control it, we're not enjoying ourselves. And when we are enjoying ourselves, we're not controlling it. We can't win. We're miserable, you know, and we just can't win. The tragic truth, we're at the bottom of page 23. The tragic truth is that if a man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. The tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected.
Boy, that is so true. Especially, I can say with me that I had lost control of my drinking and didn't realize it until after a long kind of a period of time. I just kept coming up with excuses. I kept buying into the reasons why, but I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And in the end, that loss of control, didn't really realize that I had a problem until it was already too late. Damage had already been done, and the any attempts to stop or control it, it was impossible. It was just absolutely impossible. Rob?
Yeah, and I talked about this a little bit earlier. That we cross out, when do we cross over that line? The tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. And that's a sad part. Okay. Squiggly writing means it's really important. So if you haven't got that highlighted, it should be. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice and drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable, at certain times, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink.
Yeah, and this is really a great description of the malady. It is that loss of power of choice. in drinking. We find ourselves going after it no matter what. And again, this is just a great description of the malady and the lack uh, of power that we have personally to be able to stop. And then obviously everything that goes with everything negative that goes with drinking is there. And it's interesting too is that when you were drinking, quote, normally back in the early stages of your drinking career, let's just say that that's the type of drinker you were. Things were a lot more fun. They were a lot more carefree. People weren't even thinking about the drinking. They were thinking about other things. But now we're at the point where this person has BADS starts up automatically and from the very beginning. And bottom line is that everything bad about drinking starts with that first drink. It's already there, and people no longer it's no longer fun. Everybody's on edge and uncomfortable. Rob?
It says here in the squiggly writing, our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. Bill thought self-knowledge and willpower would save him this time. He had some knowledge about things, his willpower and self-knowledge would fix this. And what happened? Bill went out drinking again. These are things, we're unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness. There are times where it comes into my mind that, you know what? Not a good idea for me to drink today. Certain time, but they are so infrequent that it's not enough to stop me all the time. Once in a blue moon, I'll be able to say, no, you know what? No, I can't do it today. I've got something I have to do, something that's more important. But you know what? I'm going to reward myself tomorrow. So, this is why, in the stories that we're going to read about in a few pages, suddenly the thought of a drink would be a good idea. Before I knew it, I'm banging on the bar going, why did I start? All these stories that Bill is going to give us later on, and it's I thought it'd be a good idea. That little bad bird on the shoulder telling me it's going to be different this time, and that's the whole thing. It becomes practically non-existent. Why? Because it's all stemming from the mind. My brain wants its candy and it's going to tell me anything in order for me to take that drink. Because let's be honest, as my friend Art always says, okay, the obsession, or if you want to call it the malady, their job is to get me to take that first drink. Because once I take that first drink, the allergy kicks in and then I'm craving. So the malady's job is to get me to take that first one. Then the allergy will take over. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove.
Yeah, it is so true. We learn simple things like not touching a hot stove. If you do it once, you never do it again because you realize the consequences. And why isn't it that you can make that decision, but you can't with alcohol? And that is again, what most of us realize is that that alcohol really does alter the brain in ways that doesn't allow us to be able to make that choice. And like Rob said, and Bill has said so often, and that is the brain wants its candy. The consequences are there; they happen all of the time. The thoughts occur, but they're hazy, and you quickly discount them, and then there you go, you're off to the races. Rob?
Yeah, they use the analogy of the hot stove. The analogy I like to use is in I'm of a certain age, and they had wringer washers where you used to put the clothes, you take it from the washer and you would put them in these two ringers that used to go around and around and around, and you put the towels through in order to get the water out of them. Well, as a young child, I put my arm through there. Did I do it again? No, I learned my lesson. Okay. But, so my analogy is not the hot stove, but the wringer washer. And Leo probably doesn't know anything about the wringer washer. So
Mm.
that analogy doesn't work for him. Okay. So the alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time, so here's how. Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, for God's sakes, how did I ever get started again? Only to have that thought supplanted by, well, I'll stop with the sixth drink. Or, what's the use anyhow?
Yeah, that defeated feeling, that bewilderment and baffling part of trying to figure out why you've gotten to the point of being drunk again, and here you are in public or around people, or maybe you're by yourself. But the bottom line is you get to that point, you look around and go, "How the heck did I get here?" All to figure out that, well, I don't want to feel bad about it, so I'm going to feel good about it, and trying to, and your mind changes and just basically says, oh, well, you give up and you go after it, and you are off to that sixth or more drinks, and you don't care at that point. Or if you do care, you care very little because obviously the alcohol has got control of you. Um, but that I've been through that point where I've looked around saying, "Hey, I'm going to stop at the third drink," and when I've finished the fourth drink, I say to myself, "How the heck did I get to this point again?" And then I go, "You know what? I'm so what? I'm my brain is already figured out that I'm going to drink, so I might as well get good and drunk, and why fight it? Let's just go." So very common feeling here. Rob?
Yeah, I think a lot of people call it the ethics, where they just, they get to the point where, oh, well, tomorrow's another day. I'll start all over again tomorrow. But it just, even just the way I just say that, a depressive way, well, tomorrow's another day. Ho hum, like, here I go again, you know, and, remember, this is to educate us of what the alcohol goes through. So, you know, we're going to get into a solution. Just you wait. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot.
Yeah, you just can't stop. This sort of thinking is fully established, and an individual with alcoholic tendencies probably placed himself beyond human aid. And that's really that differentiator. You now no longer have control. There's no way that you're going to be able to moderate your drinking. Alcohol has you, you don't have it. And bottom line is you are in a place where it doesn't matter, no matter what you're going to drink, you're there. So it's definitely a problem. So, Rob?
One of the big lines here, so many want to stop, but cannot. Why can't they stop? Because they don't know how to. They've been trying their own ways of doing it, but have been unable to. That's when we get, humility. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Now, here we go with some more squiggly writing. So please highlight, there is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcoming, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed.
Yeah, and so there is a solution, and that is what they want to emphasize here, and that is what we will go in forward. We'll continue to emphasize, and that is the solution that's outlined in this book that we'll talk about. It's not easy in the beginning. You have this. You don't like the self-searching. That leveling of your pride, the confession of shortcomings is all very hard for people to do. And it does require you to do this in order to be successful. But doing it, you actually see that it works in us. The fact that it had happened in the first 100 and beyond within this book. And then we look around in this room and we see that it works for us as well. It is something that you have no other choice. Well, you have a choice, I guess, but you have no good excuse not to just pick up this program and run with it. And if you do so and do it really committed, if you're really committed to doing it, you will be, as they say, rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. And there you are, you're back to a place where you've probably lost hope that you'll ever be back to. Rob?
Yeah, a couple of things, but we saw that it really worked in others. Okay, so we saw somebody else that we knew drank too much also, but it worked for them. What did they do? Leo, what did you do? We're at this point. We're looking, we're searching, okay? We are at ground zero, or we're in that pit, or at the lowest depth that we can go to. Okay, when therefore we were approached by somebody. Okay, remember, Ebby came to Bill. Bill didn't go to Ebby. Ebby had 2 months sober. 2 months sober. Please remember that. Okay, and why did Ebby come to Bill? Because Bill wasn't going to go to Ebby. He didn't know, Ebby, he had heard that Ebby was being locked up for alcoholic insanity, basically. Then he hears from Ebby and wonders how did you get out? And then he sees Ebby. There's something about his eyes. Something has changed. Would he have it? Of course he would. So he notices something different. Okay, Bill wants to get better, but doesn't know how. Ebby has a solution for him. Would he have it? Of course he would. Is he willing to do what Ebby did in order to get what Ebby has? Okay. The great fact is just this and nothing less. I'm sorry, I lost track of time. I apologize. Let's bring in Bill. I get so excited.
Hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. This is a real good part of the book. You guys did a good job today. We started off on page 20. We talked about moderate drinkers and the hard drinker and the real alcoholic. A moderate drinker is not an alcoholic. We would call them a social drinker. That's somebody that can take it or leave it alone. And a hard drinker, that's not an alcoholic either. That's somebody that drinks a lot. They can drink just as much as we do. They can drink all night long, but they got the ability to stop when they want to. And if they don't want to drink, they have the ability not to drink that particular day. So they're not an alcoholic. They're just people that drink a lot. And then he talks about the real alcoholic. And the description he gives of the real alcoholic is that once he starts drinking, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption. In other words, he's talking about the allergy, the physical part. Once you take a drink, the phenomenon of cravings develops and you can't stop. And that's all you have to be a real alcoholic. You just have to have that one part of the disease. If you have, most people probably have both parts. They have the physical and the mental part. But if you just have one part, you're still considered an alcoholic. And when he says real alcoholic, that's just Bill Wilson's style of writing. He likes to overemphasize words. He does that throughout this book. He uses real for other words also. In his story, he said real infidelity. He said real employment. He said real significance. I mean, it's just the way that Bill overemphasizes things for a dramatic effect. And like was pointed out, he's going to call this a real alcoholic on this page. And then we get to the next page, he says, true alcoholic. and on the bottom of page 25, he's going to say seriously alcoholic. Bill likes to use these qualifying words just to make things sound more dramatic. An alcoholic is an alcoholic. So don't get into that argument and go down that rabbit hole that a real alcoholic is something different. It's not. It's just an alcoholic. And that's just Bill's way of doing it. And then what he does, he goes in here to describe a little bit of the behaviors that we do when we're an alcoholic. And when it gets to page 23, that's going to be the last time, right at the top of page 23. It's actually the bottom of page 22. He talks about the bodily and mental part. And this is the last time that the book is going to talk about the physical part. From 23 on, he's talking about the mental part. And that part in our brain that short circuits and makes us drink against our will. And he says, therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. If the problem was only in our body, when we got drunk and everything went wrong and all bad consequences happened, we wouldn't drink again the next day. Say, hey, I'm not going to do that again. If I do that again, I'm going to get hurt. Something in our brain short circuits and makes us drink when we don't want to drink. And he's trying to explain that here by giving us these different ideas here on what happens. And on page 24, he's got that one paragraph all in italics. That means it's important that they put it in italics. And he's basically saying we've lost our power of choice in drink. In other words, when it comes to drinking, once you're a full-blown, true, real, or whatever you want to call it, alcoholic, you don't have any choice left. Your brain makes you drink against your will. And I like to call it my brain wants its candy, because my brain is addicted to alcohol. When you're addicted to something, it's not your foot that gets addicted. The addiction is in your brain. And your brain makes you drink when you don't want to drink. And at the end of that paragraph, he says, we are without defense against the first drink. So before we even pick up a drink, we are defenseless against it. You don't have to start drinking to not be able to stay sober. Even before we start drinking, we can't stay sober because something in our brain makes us drink against our will. And in the middle of that paragraph, it says, at certain times. That's the key to this, because there's going to be certain times when you don't want to drink and you won't drink. And then there's going to be certain times when you don't want to drink and you're going to drink. That's what baffles us. That's the baffling thing about alcoholism, because some days you can use your willpower or your choice not to drink, and other days you can't. And the longer you drink and the more alcoholic you become, the shorter those periods of time are going to get. So, well, what he's doing, he's just trying to give us some definitions here or some instructions on what's going on with an alcoholic. Because most people don't understand this. Most people think that we're just drinking because we're troublemakers or ne'er-do-wells or whatever, or we just don't want to deal with reality. And that they don't understand this. That's not true. We drink when we don't want to drink. And the next paragraph after that one in italics, the almost certain consequences that follow even taking a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. In other words, we forget about all the bad stuff that happened to us when we were drinking. We only think about the good stuff, the fun that we had, makes us feel better. That means I can't think to drink through. You'll hear people in the room say, think to drink through. This book says I can't do that. And you'll hear people say, I can choose not to drink. And this book says we can't choose not to drink because we've lost the power of choice in drink. So he's trying to give us a little more ideas or whatever about alcoholism so we can understand a little bit what's going on with us. Okay, pretty much that's all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thanks so much, Bill.
You bet. All right, Rob, let's do the serenity prayer.
The serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.